Oh, man.
You're fired?
The panel here.
Who gets to be Trump?
Oh, here, no.
I don't think any of us can do that.
Not interested.
You know.
Definitely not interested.
It's going to be huge.
Tim is the closest one to the real estate mogul.
Yeah, yeah, and that's
true.
And there would be a close resemblance there.
Except Tim's like really
Nice.
all in his job.
For your proclamation.
Oh, hot damn.
But you can make it any time except during a meeting.
Right. Are we ready to start here?
Just another minute.
You didn't give us a page that tells us what our next meetings are. I'm going to be so lost.
I gave you lots of other pages.
Those are great pages too.
I'll see you in 2 weeks.
I'll see
And then
you
3
now.
weeks after that.
Yeah, what happens?
No idea. All right, let's call this thing to order. All right, 6:30, call to order. We have everybody here except Tracy, who's in Vancouver. Hi, Tracy. Hope you're watching.
Right.
Oh, I hope you're not.
Open the open forum. There's nobody here. Close the open forum. Moving on to the consent agenda. We have 5 things on today's consent agenda, the usual 3, and then we also have a gambling permit for the St. John's Catholic Church raffle, and we also have the street permit for the art festival. If there is any wish to discuss those in more detail, we can pull one from the consent agenda. Otherwise, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Any opposed? Carries. Moving right along. So the EDA, they have another street vacation request. So we have a resolution 2017-13, which I believe, I don't have a copy of sitting in front of me.
Here.
Ah, there it is. Oh, it's in the packet. Obviously. I could look it up, but this is faster. So we've got basically 89 feet of street that needs to be vacated for the continuation of the land for the EDA project. So, is there any discussion that we should have about that? I mean, we did some vacation last meeting, and I guess this is an extra little chunk that.
I don't think you've done any vacation.
Oh, we didn't. But we talked about it last.
Set the public hearing.
Not last
we
meeting.
set the public
but
hearing.
The meeting previous to last meeting, you set the public hearing, which
Gotcha.
is now. This is the public hearing.
Awesome. So that's great.
And I just have one bit of information. It's kind of a full drawing of the vacation, how it relates to the entire parcel of land. So just if anybody isn't familiar with that, because the map in the packet only shows the stub of the land and doesn't really show the additional parcel that is going to be accessed.
And that additional parcel, that was the tax forfeit land that they.
No, the tax forfeit land are these portions along the
in
street.
between. I got it.
And One Roof purchased the property, the larger parcel, and the tax forfeit parcel has, I think, already been deeded to the EDA, or from the EDA to One Roof Housing.
Okay.
And it's those two right-of-ways that need to be vacated in order for them
So that
to,
they can develop the whole chunk.
yes, create their own system of road and access to their land.
And so just to be clear, when this road is vacated, we're vacating these two, 13th Avenue and 14th Avenue West, and then those chunks of land will then become part of the parcel that is owned by One Roof.
Mm-hmm.
So
Is that Jefferson and
Prospect?
Prospect?
Yes. Yeah, I love that. So is there any further discussion we need to have about this? Does anybody have any strong feelings or anything we need to discuss?
If there's not, I would make a motion to approve Resolution 2017-13.
Motion is on the table. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. Is there any further discussion? Well, I think it's great we're moving in this direction. I'm excited to see that project take off. So, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carries. Street has been vacated.
It's your turn,
Next
Bruce.
up, Bruce. We've got Bruce at a big long table, and we can hear him. So we're going to talk about the.
We can't hear.
What happened? We can't hear you anymore.
His lips are
He
moving.
was just lip syncing.
Oh. Yeah.
Oh my
now everybody
God.
witnessed that this worked 5 minutes ago, right?
I wasn't here.
I wasn't.
I didn't.
I don't
see it.
believe it.
Yeah, you were. He was monkeying with his little sound thing. So I bet you.
You want to redo what we just did?
He did it.
Is that the off light?
Okay, he's gonna hang up, or one of us is
He's
gonna
gonna
hang
hang
up,
up.
and then we're gonna call him back. So anyway, for the council's pleasure. So the proposal that we've
Bruce
got.
has left the call.
Bruce has left the building. So the proposal that we have on the table, which is summarized in Resolution 2017-14, this is the preliminary.
Cover your ears, folks.
Yeah, it's really annoying.
Oh.
Can you hear me now?
Hey!
Sorry about that. I tried to move the speaker closer to me and I ended up messing it up apparently. So I really won't touch anything.
Yeah. All right, so I was just kind of going through what we're up against here, Resolution 2017-14, which is the preliminary bond approval. The recommendation that you guys made, or that your agency made, is a resolution, or is a recommendation to go with the $1.5 million in cash, and then the financing of the remainder. Is that correct?
It is.
Okay, take it away.
I'd like to suggest actually that you open the public hearing, and then what we'll do is review the capital improvement plan and the resolution that approves this so-called bond capital improvement plan. I'll discuss why it's different from your typical budgeting CIP. And then from there, Mayor and Council, I'd like to then go into the overall bond pre-sale report in that resolution. So it's CIP and that resolution, and then the pre-sale, and then we should be covered.
Okay.
And I guess I'm not sure at which point you close the public hearing, but you can just wave your hand and say we're closing the public hearing.
There's no one here, so I think we could
Okay.
probably close it right now, but you might as well go ahead and...
Let it be known that the public hearing is now open.
Okay, very good, thank you.
I know there's probably more
So-
legal way of doing it.
No, that's perfect.
I'm first going to reference the memo. I think you got a one-page memo from us. And this really just sort of spells out what we're doing here relative to the Public Works facility financing. And it builds off the conversation we had, I think, back in February about how this project fits into your overall CIP, including your other projects that you're thinking about in 2018, 2019, and then beyond. So because you're proposing to use two statutory authorities for this Public Works facility financing, and those are what we call capital improvement plan bonds and then utility revenue bonds. Because we're using CIP authority, you need to jump through some hoops relating to that CIP bond authority, including the consideration of this plan and saying, yes, we approve this plan and the issuance of bonds based on this plan. The big thing just to convey again is that this bond CIP really is just structured solely to meet the statutory requirements. It's just something that you need to check the box on. It in no way directs or changes the work that you're doing with your larger 5-year CIP, or what we're calling your budget CIP. We know that that's something that you revisit and continually look at, and you'll be making funding decisions about those projects in the future. And really, this bond CIP is only just to authorize you and get you in position to execute on part of the overall financing plan. Hopefully that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So the CIP itself, is not exactly the most exciting read. Again, it's required to address 8 different considerations under state statute: the condition of the existing infrastructure, the likely demand for the improvement, the estimated cost of the improvement, and so on and so forth. Kim was really helpful in providing us with the contextual information to fill out those paragraphs of the plan on your behalf. And so I would certainly welcome any questions you have, but again, recognizing that this is really a procedural step. But with that said, did anyone have any questions about the plan or any of the information in the narrative or in the exhibits?
There was a percentage that we could not exceed in 1 year, and I think
Yes.
yeah, and we're below that for this project, and I was curious, does that mean we could not take on another project that would exceed that amount plus this project while this project is being paid off?
Just for this year, though.
No.
That's a great question. So specifically, I think this restriction is listed in a couple of different places, but I know it's listed on page 8, at the bottom of page 8. And so, yeah, it's statutory. The statutes say that the total annual debt service that you have on capital improvement plan bonds can't exceed 0.16% of your estimated market value. And so based on your current market value of about $169 million, your maximum annual debt service amount for CIP bonds is about $270,000. As you can tell, if you look specifically at the CIP portion of this 2017 bond, not the overall bond, but just the CIP portion, that average debt service is about $171,000. So you've got about $100,000 of capacity above and beyond this bond issue here. You would certainly be able to issue future bonds that takes use of that $100,000 of surplus capacity. And also, your capacity should grow as your tax base grows. That might not be terribly quickly, but you will have an increased overall capacity over time as well. So part of our strategy in splitting this public works facility financing between a CIP portion and a utility portion was really to avoid taking your full CIP capacity here. If we had just done CIP bonds for this whole public works facility, most likely we would have tapped the vast majority of your CIP bond capacity.
Mm-hmm. And so until 2033, our capacity will just be another 100,000. Is that
per year? Right. So you could issue bonds that would be, paid back at $100,000 a year.
Yep.
Just using the CIP authority, right? So that's
okay.
Not additional utility revenue bonds, not liquor store revenue bonds, not street assessment bonds, not, there's a whole host of other authorities that you can use as well. Yeah. It's really just, that's restrictions just for CIP bonds.
And it sounds like there's actually quite a few restrictions for just the CIP bond as well, right? Like it's only, like the only other thing I guess not. As far as which project they could
City
use
Hall facility.
Right, okay.
Right, and so on your city CIP, that's probably really the only other use that you would really be able to use CIP bonds for, because everything else you've got street reconstruction bond authority and other vehicles that you can use essentially to get to where you're wanting to go. Okay. I should mention, Mayor and Council, just for the record, you probably saw there is a reverse referendum window that is part of the CIP process. So if citizens really feel strongly about opposing the public works facility, they can circulate a petition, and if they get signatures equal to 5% of the votes in the last general election, they can stall the CIP portion of this bond issue. So that was part of the public notice that was published in the paper. That's also part of the CIP itself and the CIP resolution. So it's fully transparent in all of the documents, but just for full disclosure, I wanted to state that here as well.
It's like 20 people or something.
Any other questions about the CIP?
So is the reason that, so in section 4, the project summary, 2017 expenditures $2 million, so that's the public works facility. 2018 through 21, none at this time. Is that because we haven't identified a date or a time for, say the City Hall project or anything like that, or is it because we literally haven't spent that money yet?
It's because of what he started with, the difference between this report, which is a procedural report to allow you to sell bonds for the Public Works facility, and an actual plan, what we're calling our budget CIP,
Got it.
that includes other projects that we may end up spending money. But right now, we're not planning on spending any of our CIP authority on those projects during those years.
Right.
And if we were going to, we'd have to come back and revise this in order to get our, that procedural thing taken care of in the future.
Okay.
Exactly. Okay, well, sounds like you already closed the public hearing, or maybe you want to do that now officially to the
it just was done.
imaginary people in the audience.
It was just done. It's closed.
We're trying to quiet them down. Hang on a second.
Yeah. Where's your gavel?
Yeah.
Oh, man, yeah.
Molnir.
Mjolnir. Okay.
So then I think it would be appropriate if you see fit to do so to consider the first resolution, which is the one that gives preliminary approval for the issuance of the city's general obligation capital improvement plan bonds in an amount not to exceed $2,095,000 and so on and so forth, approving the CIP.
Yeah, so we have resolution 2017-14 before us, which does what Bruce just said it does. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Is there a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion that we need to have about this? So, I just have one thing. Maybe Bruce, you could talk a little bit about why you decided to stick with the 2 million and 1.5 million numbers rather than looking at borrowing more, since the borrowing climate is really nice, or anything. Just what was the justification for that? Just curious.
Yeah, it is an advantageous borrowing period, but you also have really strong fund balances, and I think after the February conversation we had, city staff still felt like those were funds that really could be applied to the public works facility from both your general fund and from your various utility funds, electric and sewer primarily. And so, it's a balancing act. We know that if you had held on to more cash, you would have more flexibility in the future. But frankly, we, in spite of the run-up that we saw in rates in late 2016 and early 2017, pretty much right after we spoke via that first conference call, bond rates have actually come down. And we don't really see upward pressure a whole lot. So long story short, I think we all felt that it was still the right combination of debt and cash. Of course, that's your call. If you want to revise the pre-sale, we can certainly look at that. And so, you're right, though, the CIP resolution was really sized to have $2 million of bonding under the CIP portion.
Well, I mean, I just was asking. I was asking just because that was something that we had discussed earlier. I mean, I think that this is a fine plan. I like the fact that we're holding on to a little bit of our CIP authority for future projects. And I mean, I totally agree that we have the fund balances. We may as well apply them. So I wasn't being contrary. I just wanted the explanation. So
no, I appreciate it. It's a good reminder that you do have some good options. You have flexibility in one way or the other, either to certainly do more bonding, and we could have up to the utility revenue portion, but then again, you do have fund balances, and there's always a policy question of how much cash is too much cash to be holding on to. So I think you're striking the right balance here.
all right. So any further discussion? We have a motion and a second on the table to approve resolution 2017-14. Is that correct? Anything else? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. All right, so that's that. Is that,
We have a little more.
we have a little bit more to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Just
we
a
have
little
to
bit
do
more,
this.
and I won't belabor this. Great. So now we get to the actual meat of the presentation, because this is your bond issue. We structured it based on input from city staff and the parameters that we talked about for the CIP portion, the utility portion, but this is really your opportunity to ask questions about why it's structured the way it is. If you would like us to consider something else, by no means are you obligated to proceed on track to the May 31st bond issue. That seems to work well for your timing on the public works facility, but again, it's paramount that the council is comfortable with the proposed financing, since it is a significant financing. So in a nutshell, this issuance will fund $3.5 million of the estimated $5 million total project cost. We've discussed that before, and as you're aware, it's $2 million of CIP funding and $1.5 million of utility revenue funding. The first page talks about the assumptions and the structuring. It references that CIP bond limit again. There really is no similar restriction on utility revenue bonding. It gives you the statutory authorities and the term. It's important to note that both the CIP and the utility portions will be paid back over a 15-year term. So while you could have sized those differently, city staff and others felt that it worked for both portions to have the same amortization schedule. So in some ways that'll make it easy to track the debt service. Excuse me. We did want to point out that on the CIP portion, the first interest payment, which would occur on February 1 of 2018, will be paid with capitalized interest. So you're essentially bonding for that first interest payment, and that will not be the case on the revenue, on the utility revenue side, because you have utility revenues available to do that, and you don't really have a levy already in place to pay for the CIP portion. And then finally, I wanted to point out here on page 1 that you will have the sole discretion to either redeem, pay off bonds or refinance bonds anytime after February 1 of 2026. So that would mean you could do that multiple times even, and it's really only your call. Once these bonds are priced at the end of May, those rates are fixed. It's not like a bank financing where they can reset the rate on you. After May 31st, you'll know exactly what your debt service obligations are unless you choose to pay the bonds off early or to refinance. On page 2, really quickly, just a few points. These bonds will be bank qualified, which makes them very attractive to community banks to buy them because they get both the tax exemption as well as another tax benefit for using their deposits to buy the bonds. You have an excellent credit rating at AA with a stable outlook. That was recently the result of surveillance. That was Moody's, right? I apologize, but you do have an S&P AA rating, and we would recommend, based on our work with both S&P and Moody's, that you continue to use S&P. We think that their methodology is a little more straightforward and well suited for cities in greater Minnesota, like Grand Marais. So then we give a couple other points on the basis for recommendation. Certainly the competitive sale approach, which Grand Marais has used historically, is we find the best approach. It gets you the best overall results, especially with a bond of this size. It's certainly big enough to attract significant interest in the bond market. And it's also in alignment with best practices from the Government Finance Officers Association. A few other parameters on the bond issue. I won't belabor those unless you want me to explain a certain point. The one thing I should mention is premium. It's very likely on this bond issue that the winning bidder will offer you more than $3.64 million for the bonds. And what they want in return for that $3.64 million is a higher coupon rate on the bonds than what the actual yield will be. And so you'll have, let's say, $100,000 or $200,000 of surplus immediately after we take the bids on your behalf. And then, depending on the input from the city, you would either keep some of that surplus in the bond issue or actually use that premium to reduce the size of the bonds. And so we can work with staff as we get closer, and I know you have been receiving bids on the project itself. If you're at a point where you basically know what your project costs are going to be, and you still want to keep to the same cash debt mix that we're talking about here, then we would use any premium just to reduce the size of the bond issue. And so we might be coming back to you with, let's say, a $3.4 or $3.5 million bond issue, but it would still fund the same net amount overall of project costs. So it's kind of a quirky thing going on in the market. Bond investors like to see those higher coupons of 3 and 4%, even though they might only be earning 1% in actual yield. It's a psychological thing, but we certainly want to accommodate that because we can still adjust the bond sizing to get you what you want, and it achieves the best overall yield for the city. Then finally, Mayor and Council, you don't have any refunding opportunities at this time. You do have some continuing disclosure and arbitrage monitoring responsibilities. We wanted to call out the fact that with utility revenues, it will be important to maintain rates and revenue structures sufficient to both paying operating costs and debt service, so that you don't have to tap your reserves or your debt levy for any portion of that utility revenue debt service. And then finally, there are some other service providers involved. We're in the process of working with city staff to determine who will be serving as bond counsel on this issue. And then Bond Trust Services Corp is the paying agent. That's a subsidiary of Ellers that works with you to make sure that your semi-annual payments get to the bond investors as they need to. And then again, S&P would be the rating agency. The timeline is on the next page. Hopefully that's pretty straightforward. We're looking at closing at the end of June. That's when you would receive all of the bond proceeds. And then the next few pages are the pre-sale resolution, as well as the various bond schedules based on our current estimates of the market. And I should point out that these interest rates here are at least 25 basis points over the current market, and maybe a little bit more even. So we definitely erred on the side of being conservative in estimating an average coupon of 2.64%, and we would hope, that your actual results would be better than that. So let me stop there and ask if you have any questions about the pre-sale report or the bond structure, again, incorporating the CIP portion and the utility portion.
We have a resolution 2017-22 that's in front of you that wasn't in your packet that we'll be considering after you're done discussing this. I know he talked about the schedule as an option for you to consider, but I would just hope that we could stick to the plan as we've got it right now, to do the sale at the end of May and close at the end of June. That's going to be, we'll certainly be incurring some pretty significant invoices on the project by that time. So we wouldn't want it to get pushed back anymore if we can help it. As a matter of fact,
I should point out that through a quirk of the calendar, it really works well for you. The fact that you meet on the second and last Wednesdays of the month, I'm pretty confident that you will have either zero competition or very little competition in selling bonds on May 31st. But it's still a full active day in the bond market. So it would be, I think it's a good time definitely to be in the market, in spite of the fact that May and June are typically fairly busy. I think you should get a lot of attention that day.
that's good. So when we talk to Bruce again, it'll be that last meeting in May, and we'll be reporting on the results of the sale.
Well,
Yep.
assuming we pass this.
Yeah.
So, does anybody have any other further conversation or questions for Bruce, or is there a motion to approve Resolution 2017-22, which is providing for the sale of $3,640,000 in general obligation bonds?
I'd make a motion.
There's a motion. Is there a second? Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Thank you for putting all this information together. I know it's necessary, but still it's good to have somebody who knows their way around it. telling it to us.
That's the truth.
It's been a long time
Thank you,
in the
and
works.
it's a lot of fun to work with Brian Marais, and it sounds like this will be a good project for the community too. And I don't mind going up there when it's not icing
No, we want you here.
Highway 61. So
Yeah, we want you here now. Anyway. Okay, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. All right, thank you.
Should we say our goodbyes?
thank you.
Thanks,
What's that,
Bruce.
Mike?
Should we say our goodbyes now?
I guess we can say our goodbyes, and now I can stop talking. So
Wow.
thank you all. Have a good night.
Yeah,
Good night.
Thank you.
All right, so moving right along.
Now we're gonna call Eric from McGough to talk about the
Okay.
next batch of stuff. Now this was all emailed separately from the packet.
So you guys got information in your email about this stuff, which is all of the bids, or the bid offers for the different companies that responded to, or that had the winning bids for the project.
You also have in front of you a stack of resolutions, one for each of these bid packages that we're going to approve tonight.
Which we have to do one at a time.
Yeah.
So we've got Holden Electric Company for the
Hi, I'm here trying to
big
get-
chunk of the electric.
Yeah, let's
We've-
go through them.
Oh, you want to go in?
Resolution order.
On the
Let's get-
resolutions?
Let's get Eric on the speakerphone first.
Oh, okay. Starting with 2017-15. Is he there? Yeah. That's some older technology. It should work better.
We did manage to get it to work earlier today again, but that might have been a first.
Hello?
Is he gonna be on TV too?
Okay, I'm gonna get the conference
We
and
will
see if
have
you're
John
both on here.
and Antonio on TV later.
Oh, we will. All right.
Okay,
Gosh,
are you
this
both
is,
on the
Isn't
line?
this great?
I think it's a monumental day.
Okay, I'm gonna put you on speaker. Are you both there?
Yeah, good evening. Yes, you got Chris too.
All right.
Terrific.
Yes.
Eric Johnson is here.
All right, super. All right, so we're going to start with Resolution 2017-15. This is the
Earthwork.
earthwork from Veit down in Duluth. Is there anything you want to tell us about this one, or?
Yeah, so earthwork, we received 3 bids. Northland Constructors of Duluth, Hewlin Brothers, and Veit. And we are recommending Veit for the earthwork package. They were the lowest responsible bidder. We had solicited, to eight bidders and received these 3 bids back in.
All right. So,
So the form of each of these resolutions is going to be the same. It's just going to have a different name of the package. In this case, it says scope number 21 earthwork. It'll have a different contractor and a different amount, but it will authorize and direct myself to execute the letter, which is awarding the bid and then also executing the assignment of that bid and contract to McGough. So all those things are attached, and that was all the material that was previously emailed to you. So once you pass that resolution, you'll have awarded the bid to Veit and assigned it to McGough.
so having seen that that we had a competitive process, and this is the lowest responsible bid. Is there a motion to accept Resolution 2017-15?
I'll make that motion.
All right. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
So, this is a case where lowest responsible bidder is, that's a restriction that we have. Is
Yes.
that, yeah.
Yep, all these bidders are qualified. They went through a process with the construction manager to make sure that they have the appropriate experience and that they had included everything in their bids that we needed. And so at this point, price is really the only determining factor.
I assume you're familiar with last meeting. And,
Yes.
And in that situation, and we have no other, legally we have no other means to judge these except for price?
That's right.
Okay.
Because they're over $100,000.
Right.
Well, and in the case, there's going to be a few of these that aren't, but it's the entirety of the project that qualifies this for the bidding requirements here. So.
And to be clear, that there was a significant difference between the bid of Vite and the next lowest bidder,
Yeah. Several $1,000.
almost $300,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I wasn't necessarily talking about this resolution. I'm sorry if that's out of order. I was just in general trying to grasp this concept, so. But thank you,
Mhm.
Tim, for.
And city council members and mayor, I apologize. I'm having trouble hearing everybody or the conversation, but are there additional questions or any, does anybody have questions regarding the recommendation, the earthwork?
I mean,
And this isn't exclusively to the earthwork, but while you were here last time, we asked if you had worked with the companies of whose bids we accepted, and you said yes, you had. Is that generally the case, or is that always the case with your current recommendations as well?
you might not have.
Repeat the question.
I apologize. I caught a few
Ask
few of
about
the
time.
words there.
Shout it, Anton.
I was actually looking back at one of these numbers on
He
here,
wants
so-
to know if you have worked with these bidders in the past.
Good summary.
Oh, yes.
summary.
Vite I have worked with in the past. They're a very good contractor. They've got lots of horsepower. They are pretty aggressive with change orders, and that's something we take into account. It's a working. We work with the contractors that we recommend, and if they are awarded, we work through that process and make sure that we do our due diligence to, vet anything out that comes our way. So.
All right. Is there any other discussion about Resolution 2017-15? Is there a motion to approve Resolution 2017-15?
So moved.
Already did that.
Oh, it was
oh,
moved and
oh.
seconded. We already got it. We were ready.
Now you
Okay.
can just vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carries. Sorry, my bad. All the talking, I got backed up a little bit. All right, so the next one, in no particular order, 2017-16.
Cast in place concrete.
There you go.
Cast in place concrete. Yes, we received two bids, Northland Concrete and Masonry, who has recently changed their name and made it a lot longer and more cumbersome. I guess they had a merger and they call it S&S Concrete and Masonry, but they also kept the Northland and Concrete and Masonry name, so that's why that's longer. But they were the apparent the lowest responsible bidder, and we've scoped them out and are recommending them. I've worked with them in the past, and they are a good contractor to work with. So we feel confident in that recommendation.
Make motion to approve Resolution 2017-16.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Carries. Moving right along. No apparent order. 2017-17,
Masonry.
which is not cast in place. It's
It's not cast in place.
okay.
It's
So what
masonry.
do we got for this one?
So masonry, bedrock, flint. We had solicited, to five bidders and received 2 bids back. Harbor City Masonry and Bedrock Flint. We're recommending Bedrock Flint based on their competitive number. And again, we are working a project in Cook for the hospital there, and Bedrock Flint is on the project, and they're a solid performer. So.
All right.
I'll make a motion for resolution 2017-17.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Moving right along. No apparent order. 2017-18.
Roofing.
Take it away, Eric.
Roofing. We sent out to six bidders. All this was on the Builders Exchange, and we had advertised, in the local newspaper up there. So anybody's able to bid these projects or bid these scopes of work. But we sent it out to 6. We received three bids back for roofing. AEW Kettle, Jamar, and Range Cornice. We're recommending Range Cornice and Roofing Company. They are the lowest responsible bidder. The one item I want to point out is that we had an alternate option for an EPDM, like a rubber roof, versus in lieu of the standing seam metal roof. And if the desire was to go that route, Jamar would have been the lowest responsible bidder, but I believe the desire is to maintain that standing seam roof, and therefore we're recommending Range Cornice as they are the lowest in that category.
So what you're saying is that Range Cornice could do the flat rubber roof as well, but it would be more expensive for them to do it?
Right.
More expensive than Jamar.
Then Jamar, that's what I mean.
But cheaper than the metal.
Yeah.
Than the standard.
I guess, okay, yeah. Very,
Hey.
very good clarification to make, but more expensive than Jamar.
Have you worked with the Range Cornice and Roofing Company?
Personally, I have not. There are other individuals in our office that have, and they've had good success with them in the past. So,
Okay.
I like that it's a Range company, too.
So $60,000 is the price differential between the cheapest metal roof and the cheapest rubber roof. That's not as much of a difference as we expected, and staff and the architect are certainly recommending that you go with the metal roof, in particular because that difference really isn't as much as.
Yeah, I feel
we
pretty
thought.
strongly about the metal roof. Okay, I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2017-18. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? All in favor?
All right.
Opposed? Carries. Resolution 2017-19.
Aluminum framed storefronts and windows. See, now it's a title like that that lets you know you're working with a construction manager who has a system.
yeah. So again, we had solicited out to 10 bidders. We received 2 bids back, and St. Germain's Glass is the lowest responsible bidder, and that's who we are recommending for the windows. And they're within all these contracts that we've discussed are within the budget as well. I should mention that. That's important.
Except for the electric.
So,
Except for the electric.
yep, we'll get to the electric package here in a little bit, but as far as the aluminum frame storefronts and windows, St. Germain's is who we're recommending.
I'll move resolution 2017-19.
Okay, motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Discussion.
And I couldn't see any further pages in on this particular letter of recommendation, who was the other bidder?
It wasn't in the.
Eric, who was
wasn't-
the other bidder?
We had Masabi Glass. Masabi Glass was at $43,312, and St. Germain's Glass was at $32,091.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. 2017-20. So we're talking about
Mechanical.
mechanicals.
Mechanical. So we received 2 bids back on this package, bid scope number 19, and the 2 bidders were Jamar and AW Kettle. We are recommending Jamar on this project. The numbers were tight between the two, so it was very competitive. However, Jamar, again, I've worked with Jamar in the past. They are a very strong performer. I've got a lot of confidence in their abilities, and know they'll do well.
There you have it.
I'll make a motion. What are we on, 19?
20.
Oh, thank you. For resolution 2017-20.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. All right, moving right along. 2017-21. So now we're talking about the electrical. So this one, you have to tell us a little bit more about that.
Right. So electrical, we received 3 competitive bids: Nordic Electric, Hunt Electric, and Holden Electric. This package was over budget slightly. It was the one that we in this grouping that we're recommending that did come in over budget. But through the scope analysis card and the groupings that we got, we are recommending Holden Electric. They are the low responsible bidder.
So I'm paging through the letter, and what was the budget that we were shooting for?
We were shooting for, one second. $181,000.
Wow, it's a bit of a difference.
So we're over by roughly $36,000 with Holden Electric.
Wow.
And so this is a situation where we have no choice again.
No.
It's
Well, I mean, we
Just
could
lowest.
rebid it, but it's not going to
Right,
change anything.
right.
No, and it's not, this is the first time we've had bids come in where they were actually over our budget. So, and some of them have been significantly under. And in this case, Eric, we had talked a little bit yesterday about the fact that maybe what's included in the electrical scope is a little bit different than what was in there when you had created that budget.
Yeah, there were some revisions that came in between our last budget exercise and the final CD documents. So, some routing to that transformer and final locations to the electrical room. There were some changes that were made that I don't think we had anticipated when we were budgeting.
So we can look at these numbers and know that they were competitive, and this one is significantly the least of the 3 numbers. And that's probably more important than comparing it to what we had estimated earlier.
I'll make a motion for resolution 2017-21.
All right, motion's on the table. Is there a second? I'll second that. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Yeah,
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, you know, I would so much like to hire and support local contractors, but I guess in this case, we have no legal option. Right?
Yeah. Anything else? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. All right. So, Eric, do you have anything else for us? Closing comments? Snide remarks?
Closing comments, I guess, you know, just kind of a rough overview. Now, with these packages, these were kind of the next grouping, the main packages that we were looking to award, and with that, you know, we're roughly 80% bought out on the project. So the remaining packages are, you know, are still being vetted through, and I hope to have recommendations before the next council meeting. But by and large, this, you know, this bites off a good chunk of the project, and it's, you know, in the scope, as far as scope goes. So just wanted everybody to be aware of that, and also, you know, earthwork, with the earthwork package, we're on track to start, hopefully we're going to start them mobilizing on the week of May 8th, and then clearing and grubbing and working the site. So it's all going to start to transpire pretty quickly now from here. So
Cool. Look forward to seeing it.
Thank you.
I'll be sending you an email tomorrow, Eric, with all the assignment letters and award letters.
yeah, and thank you guys very much for the time, and we're excited. We really are. This is going to be a good project, and sorry I couldn't make it up there tonight. I debated all day to make the drive or not, and opted to call in. But
Nope, that's fine.
next time I'll be up there.
Sounds good.
The wisdom really, I respect that wisdom.
Right. All right, so we're going to get Jono online here, and then we're going to talk about our...
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Sorry, sorry, I forgot to change. So, so as per our last meeting, we were not terribly satisfied with the Grand Marais Community Vision Statement. So we have a couple of other...
This resolution.
We already did that one.
No, we didn't do this one yet.
Yeah, we did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we did that one before. It just got higher number.
Yeah. All right.
So the original Grand Marais Vision Statement was something that we didn't really resonate with us terribly well, and so we have a couple of other. Hey, there he is. Wow, Antonio's there too.
Hello. Hello.
Hey. Gosh,
Hey.
There you are.
it says that Antonio's muted, but we can still hear him.
Yeah, we're in the same room, and so we have just one microphone running for the both of us, so we don't get that.
Ah, I see. All right, so I was just kind of doing the review summary of the last vision statement, and we've got in our packet we got the 1.6 vision and values, and then the community vision from there. I believe that you know, I don't know if you guys watched. Did you watch the video of the last meeting? Did you get?
I did, yes. I was able to go through it, and I really appreciate all the feedback, and I think those were really great points, and tried to, as best I could, bring that, especially those main 4 points, the getting rid of the numbers on the values, trying to create a more stronger aspirational vision, highlighting the use of the active use of the environment, and then there was some question about the words of access and opportunity, which I think we can discuss tonight. And then I also heard about that expanding the role of education or making, not just talking about vocational education. So those were the kind of major points that I heard discussed. So, but yes, to answer your question,
Okay.
was there.
Because we had, so we had that whole conversation, and then I've personally had quite a few conversations with people around the community about this, because people, they heard about the vision statement through the city council meeting, and then I was on the radio giving a report on it, and a lot of people ask, what's the reason for having a community vision statement? Why can't we just use the 6 points as like on their own, as as
Sure.
standing for themselves? And I figure that's a good thing for you guys to answer, because I don't have a good answer for that.
So maybe I can take that, Jono. One of the reasons for having the vision is simply a statement that tries to summarize what we have learned about the city from your residents that have participated in engagement, and to use it as a way to, as succinctly as possible, without distilling it to just a couple of words, what it is that we might see if we were to magically travel into the future 20 years, which is the horizon for the plan, and to describe what we would see 20 years from today, so in 2040, what Grand Marais would be like. And so that's all it tries to do, is encapsulating what people have told us they want to see in the future. It doesn't, you don't have to have a vision statement as part of your plan. In some way, it is a statement that seeks to acknowledge what we heard. So it's maybe one way of looking at it is an honesty check on the process on the part of your planning team, to really acknowledge, this is, if we add everything together that we have heard about people's aspirations for Grand Marais in 2040, this is kind of what it looks like. And that's why you see, so if we go back to that central vision statement, what is Grand Marais in 2040? It's a thriving community that features locally grown economic opportunity, where housing is available to meet the needs of all families. There's a wide array of educational opportunities, and that there's the active recreation as something that is really important and that is very present in 2040, and where it's a place where people can build friendships and community connections, and they care about each other and the environment. And that's what that is meant to be. It's just, if I magically travel 20 years into the future and I land in Grand Marais, what do I see? And the reason for having that statement is that it helps us to, the other elements, the smaller sub-elements, let's say, of the vision, they are meant to follow from that. It's an organizing tool for the thoughts and recommendations in the plan. It's what we have come up with, not because the vision is the end product. So, the vision, we can do away with it now and not include it in any document moving forward. But getting to that vision has helped us to think about what we want to orient the recommendations towards. So it's a component that I think residents might find accessible and useful, and also that is meant to summarize what the intention for the plan is, because the plan is what's supposed to help us get to that 20-year vision. Is that helpful?
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I think it might also be helpful to talk about what the vision isn't, because a lot of our frustration, I think, with a statement like this is that some possible ways we might use this statement, it's kind of unwieldy for. This is not a motto, right?
No.
It's not a catchy phrase that staff remembers and uses to orient their own activities. It's not a marketing tool that we're going to try to use to sell the community to people who don't live here.
No.
It's merely to help us focus our vision, or, you know, so to speak, on the future and where we want to go, and just remind ourselves of all the things that people told us that was important to them and that they'd like to see in this community. So
It's not a directive to the council or anything like that either. It's again, you know, we went through internal iterations and then a first iteration that went to the steering committee. And all of that process is to kind of get our heads around, do the intellectual work to understand what all those comments were saying and try and synthesize it, even if it's, you know, you can't synthesize everything into 3 sentences, but as best you can to have a kind of guiding bedrock for the planning.
Yeah, and it's not meant to be a motto. It's not meant to be a marketing statement. It's a tool for the development of the plan. And you may derive a motto from it, and you may derive a marketing statement from it if you wish, but that's a separate process. It's really a tool for the plan.
So does that answer a lot of questions? I mean, that's good for me to know. I mean, because hearing it said a tool for developing the plan, you know, and I kind of gathered that this is, you know, this is a shot that we have to look, a shot in the future that we're kind of trying to get a snapshot of and trying to summarize that. But you know, sometimes it's just, they sound so cheesy, you know, and it's hard to hard to see that as a reflection of the community. But
Right.
well, so let's look at what we got here now. So Antonio read it out there. I mean, how do you guys want to go about this? Do you want us to just fire into it, or do you have some suggestions of like explanations about things and whatnot?
Well, my instinct right now is to, I mean, if folks are pretty clear about whether or not they want this, even in the plan, you know, we could move away from having it if that is important. That you know, we don't have to have the community vision. We could just focus on the 6 value statements. But if we'd like to go through the vision, we can read it out again, and yeah, we could have a discussion. But I'd like again to remind folks that part of the development of this has been through reading all of the comments, but also through the feedback of the steering committee. And I want to honor that the steering committee has been set up separate from the council to direct some of that work. So that's just my thought there. But yeah, we can read it through if that's what folks want to do.
And you know, it may be, and you know, I don't know, you know, how far we can get today in the idea of maybe modifying the vision. But if there is an alternative vision, or maybe each of the council members would like to develop a vision for, you know, imagining that you travel 20 years into the future, and you land in your ideal Grand Marais. How would you describe that? And that's what the vision is. And you know, we can do away with it and from the plan and just have the subcomponents. But in some ways, the usefulness of having that vision in the plan is that you can think of it as the head of the body of the plan. And that head articulates the rest of the members, you know. So if we take the head away, the rest of it, you're gonna, you know, see different parts of it, you know, the arms, the legs, but it's gonna maybe make a little bit less sense than because it's the head that is articulating that. And then that's a kind of a strange example. Like, I can't think of.
No, I think that makes sense.
Maybe it's a tree. There you go. It's the trunk of the tree. I think that makes a little more sense. So it's the trunk of the tree.
Yeah,
And
it makes
so-
us feel real bad when we want to cut something's head off.
So I want to paraphrase what Jono and Antonio said and then move us on to some concrete steps here. Jono is saying this language was developed not just by a couple of people wordsmithing, but rather through the whole process of gathering community input, and was reviewed by a steering committee. And so whether or not we want to make wholesale changes to this without accessing all of that information that was given to us through the input process, I think is a real question. And Antonio's saying, I don't know how far we can get tonight, and I would suggest that we really don't try to wordsmith this tonight, but that if we want to do some sort of exercise like he's talking about, where everybody take a crack at your own vision statement if you want and see what it looks like, that let's plan that for a different time. Rather, what decision you should make tonight is, do you think that there's a place for this in the plan, and is this at least touching on the right elements, even if you're not 100% sure about the wordsmithing of it? We can use that much to at least take this and move on and keep developing other parts, and we can always circle back and do wordsmithing if we need to in the future. So is there a place for this in the plan, and do you think it's hitting on the right elements?
Yeah, I could start on this this conversation. I mean, I think this has been well done. I think it really hits on those components of the survey that were identified and that are really important and critical in the community. I mean, I think it goes a long ways towards representing what people in this community really want. I mean, with that said, you know, I was the one that was raising the question at the last meeting about the connection to the outdoors and that whole component that we seem to have missed the first time around, was that activity and connection to the outdoors concept, which had the highest scoring of any of the elements in the surveys. And I mean, I see you've made some changes here to reflect that, and you know, I'm still not quite satisfied that that language really is what I think that those survey results intended. But you know, overall, I think this is a really good effort at portraying what we want to be, you know, in this community, and those things that are important. So I would say good work.
Oh. Yeah, and I think there is a place for the community vision, and I you know after I feel a little embarrassed of how critical I was at the last meeting, and
No, it was all great actually. Thank you guys.
Well, I still feel embarrassed.
No.
But going through and writing my own, and you know, I kind of came to the conclusion that, you know, Dave's community vision is maybe not so much a community vision as it is Dave's vision. And so I was a lot more comfortable with the original community vision, but this one is great too. And I echo, I guess, what Tim said about just the outdoor recreation. It is mentioned in the vision, but maybe not so much in the individual, the 6 values. And so maybe more emphasis on that. And the only other thing I would suggest too is just Grand Marais as a hub for the county as a community. I don't know that that's specifically said. It does just talk about community, but I don't know. And maybe that's not reflected in the survey results. But
well, there is an element of environmental scan involved as well. I mean, you have to be aware of things that are important to the community that people may or may not talk about just because they're obvious or because they're not the pressing need at the time. But that concept that this is the community hub for the whole county is an important one. And it's not one that people are going to necessarily talk about a lot in a survey.
Right.
Because it's kind of just a take it. Like it's just,
yeah.
You know, it's just given.
But otherwise, great. Thank you very much. Good working.
Thank you.
Good working plan or vision and values.
Yeah, I think. Well, do you guys have anything what you want to say about it? Thoughts, comments?
I think it's better than I like this. I like this the community vision statement better than the first time. I agree with Tim, I think, too, and maybe the Dave, which I don't like to admit, but the,
Don't do it.
no, just about the focus on recreation, I think on the vision statement is solid, and I think, but working it in maybe on the next stuff we'll talk about, like maybe, because it really, I don't know, it's, I agree with the hub of the community as being something, and I recognize that we're 5 or 6 of, you know, outside of the steering committee and outside of the survey respondents, you know, so it's our interpretation of what it is for each of us. It's an individual thing that we're trying to make, you know, try and grab bits and pieces of everybody, so.
Well, yeah.
I mean, I've thought about it. I haven't like sat down and tried to write one, but I've, you know, when you look at it and think of how you could change it, it's just like, yeah, it's a challenge for sure. So I think you've done well.
When I sat down and actually tried to rewrite it and write my own, I found myself largely paraphrasing what you guys had written, you know, and just kind of like wordsmithing what you guys had already written, which was one of those things that, you know, you choosing the proper words does really matter, but, you know, trying to get a balance between, you know, is Jay's vision statement, or is this, you know, or is this the Grand Marais community vision statement wordsmithed by Jay, and that, you know, I at some point I started feeling like, well, you know, if I'm just getting way down into the weeds on this, then maybe, you know, I shouldn't be this is not where we need to be spending our energy. I agree with Tim that we've got, you know, 2 points on the bottom that you know, the access to the outdoor could be directly incorporated into, like the investment in safe, people-friendly infrastructure that supports active living, like that. That could also be, you know, trails. That could also be any number of things other than, you know, just transportation related things like the Highway 61 project or whatnot. And then the Cherished Lake Superior and other community treasures. You know, that environmental, the appreciation and treasuring of the environment comes and is at its best when you are in it, like when you are out there in it. And I don't know what the rest of the council thinks, but the word thriving in the first line, just bugs me. I would rather say something like Grand Marais is a unique community or something like that. But it seems like both of those are incredibly vague terms.
Yeah.
And does one, you know, then I get back to the wordsmithing thing, and I'm just kind of like, what the hell?
Yeah, I didn't like thriving at first. I didn't like hallmark at first, and I didn't like I didn't like locally grown. That seems very cliche. But as I went through it, I became more comfortable with all of those terms. But what I was going to ask is, before the last meeting, or during the last meeting, my understanding was the steering committee had not yet seen the community vision statement, and I'm curious where.
Oh, we had met, and they
saw a first iteration of it. Yeah. And you know, I really do apologize. I think that I wish that I had been able to be available for the meeting on the 12th. I think that would have helped. So
sure. Okay. No problem.
We leave it to our own
But that's-
resources.
yeah,
What the heck, you know?
never know what's going to happen.
Spends the next 2 weeks cleaning it up.
Mike was sick, and so there's a lot of banter going on about that.
Sure, but I do think that, yes, there was a first iteration of this that we presented to the council, and I was remoted in for that, and took feedback from folks, and then came forward with the next iteration that I sent to Mike and that you saw on the 12th, and then this is the third iteration based upon the feedback that I heard when I watched the video.
So is there do we have any instructions for them about how to kind of futz with this community vision?
The question I have is, you know, if we're, you know, working with this community vision, what are we going to do with the 6 value statements? How are we going to work with those? I mean, are we just talking about the vision statement now, or are we later going to be talking about the value statements and trying to?
Sure. So the value statements were also, they were also looked at by the steering committee. And I, again, also took the feedback from the last council meeting to tweak. There was discussion on each one of these, and a lot of really valuable insights there. And so I tweaked the value statements, especially around the education one, to ensure that it was education in all forms, for example. I also added that word active in the last value statement around cherish Lake Superior and other community treasures. And I'm going to, based upon, I've just been taking notes on what everybody's been saying tonight. So I'll also take that into account in looking at these statements. I think that was all very valuable, and especially that comment about Grand Marais being a hub for the county. So what I see is thinking about doing another go through on my end for both of those things. But again, the steering committee has reviewed both the vision and the value statements, and these are being used to guide the sections of the plans to which they adhere.
You know, one of the things that I really would like to see in the value statements is some reference to that connection to the outdoors. I mean,
Right.
I think that terminology is really important, rather than using, you know, just Lake Superior or Northwoods like you're using in the vision statement. I mean, it's a much broader concept of people connect to the outdoors in a lot of different ways, and and I don't think we want to tie it down to just being a reference to the lake.
You're right, and that is totally borne out in the statements, and I appreciate that. And so we'll discuss it internally, but I think it might make sense to add another statement that is more specific to active use of the outdoors, aside from this, you know, being involved with Lake Superior, cherishing Lake Superior natural environment. So,
Well, and versus adding, I'm wondering if we should, and not to nitpick again, but I'm wondering if we should emphasize the connection to the outdoors and have Lake Superior be a subset of that versus focusing on Lake Superior and then also the outdoors.
okay.
You know,
I mean, we know Lake Superior is an important
Right.
quality
Right.
to the community,
right.
but it's also that broader connection that we all are here and appreciate that interaction.
Right, including Lake Superior.
Including Lake
Right,
Superior.
right, versus we're here for Lake Superior and also the rest of the outdoors. It's more, we're here for the outdoors, including Lake Superior.
I feel like there's maybe a redundancy even in the expression of North Shore and Lake Superior.
Yeah,
Because the North Shore implies that you're on a body of water, and we know that we're on Lake Superior. So if you just imply the North Shore, it doesn't mean whether you're 20 miles inland or you're actually on the shore. Again, this is like nitpicky, but to me, it's almost like maybe it feels redundant.
I thought the same. I thought the same thing exactly. Yeah.
And because they're both descriptors of, well, no, they're, I guess, proper nouns for where we are, right? I mean, that's, I don't know.
I think that makes sense.
So I wonder if there's not another piece that's a little bit missing here. There's no discussion of the arts or of creative stuff that really kind of jumps out at me. And I think there could be a mention of that in the vision statement. Like, we'd certainly want to continue to see the community be kind of a creative place. And when you look at some of the values, in particular, like support and enhance local businesses, the only clue we have about what type of businesses we'd like to see are, we want them to be local and we want them to pay a livable wage. But we might also want to add some clues as to what types of businesses we think could be attracted here based on what's going on and what people told us. And I really think we did hear a lot about arts in our input, and so there might be a need to just mention it a little more overtly.
Well, could it just be Grand Marais a thriving arts community, or is that too specific? Is that too narrowing?
Yeah, that's the tough part, and I don't know like that we need to figure that out, but that's
Sure.
just an idea that I wanted to put in the mix too.
Thank you. Yeah, that makes sense too.
I mean, I think what you're saying is probably pretty accurate. And there's one other thing too that I think that we're kind of missing too, and that's kind of the active lifestyle that isn't necessarily about recreation, but it's about being involved and integrated into the community. And I think we have a community that does allow people to be active and participate in lots of different ways, unlike a lot of other communities that don't. I mean, just look at our survey and how much participation we got in that. People that are willing to step up and be parts of volunteer groups and nonprofits, and I mean, we have a very active, what I would call an active community. And
Could we call that maybe civically engaged, or an engaged community? Is that
Involved?
I think it even goes beyond civic engagement, because I think it's organizations like North House and Arts Colony and Playhouse and places. I mean, communities of this size don't typically have these kind of levels of involvement, and it's something that's particular, I think, to Grand Marais and this community. So, I mean, I think we're missing it a little bit if we don't recognize that that activity and commitment that people have to the community.
Thank you.
Yeah, for whatever that's worth. I mean, that's.
Yeah. It's worth a lot. I think they can work with that.
Yeah, definitely. That all makes a lot of sense.
Well, sometimes again that's taken for granted because it happens, but it's different here, I think, than in a lot of places, and
Yeah.
we need to recognize that.
And I think a lot of times with with a vision or with a survey, it could be people what else they're looking for versus just what they're hoping to continue and add to. You know, it's what would they like to change or whatever. So, like you say, if it's granted, if it's given, if it's already there, then.
Well, so we're giving you some more information and you're gonna come back at us again? Is that kind of what I'm gathering?
Yes, we've taken notes on all of these. If there are any other thoughts right now about something that you just feel is really glaringly missing, I want to hear it. I think all of this information will be helpful. It may be that we think that we need to expand it another sentence. It may be that we can't just fit everything. But I think we can really be more specific on some of these issues, and all of these points are really well taken.
And it might be helpful if, as you are reviewing this vision statement and the objectives that have been developed thus far, that you feel like rewording them using your own words or bringing additional details. Because I think if we try to do it all tonight, there's going to be other things that come up that you wish that we would have talked about, etc. If you're able, maybe working with Mike, or just maybe coordinating with Mike.
Yeah, I encourage you to all send language in. That might be the best. I know, at least for me, I need to sit down and look at the texts and everything and kind of go through things myself. But I would welcome any and all wordsmith statements or value statements as well. So, Dave, if you want to send me what you did, Jay, anybody who has anything, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, I'll send it along.
Great.
Cool. Well, I think that's about all that we can accomplish tonight.
Okay.
Well, and I do think, like, all in all, I don't know how much more specific or how clearly how much clearly we need to identify things to move forward. Do we really need to nail this down before we can?
No, I think we need to.
Because I think
let them keep working on what they're hearing, but we also are working on the next steps.
Yep. Okay.
And can you fill us in on what those next steps are, so we have
Nope.
we have a thank you.
Secrets.
Super.
No, I don't think we can right now really talk specifically about what the next steps are. I
How about
think we have
vaguely?
some work to do.
Well, vaguely, I mean, we get the community vision down because that's going to be something that we use for the process of actually writing the comprehensive plan and trying to figure out what the chapter headings for the comprehensive plan are and how we want to structure it. And so in saying that, there's like a bajillion ways we could potentially do that.
Yeah.
So that's one of the places where we're really going to have to come use these guys as expertise and you know, look at some models that we really like and then, you know, make suggestions for those things. Because otherwise, I mean, like I said, there's a bajillion ways to do it. We could be here forever and we would never find the perfect fit. So
Yeah.
So some of the questions about what's next rather than answers that are in my mind are, what are those chapters that we're going to use in the comprehensive plan? Who's going to select them? Do we organize them around similar topics to the values, or do we ask questions about the values in each of the topics? And it's kind of that back and forth. When we went to the planning conference 2 years ago in Bemidji, there was a lot of talk about local food and bringing local food into a comprehensive plan. And some plans had a chapter on local food, and some plans talked about local food in every chapter where they thought it could be relevant. And so it's kind of that which way are we going to go at it, and we don't really know yet, and I think we don't even know who's going to decide yet. The other big question is, how are we going to involve the community in developing content for this? Because I think that's another opportunity to really collaborate with folks to put content in this. And you know, there's this continuum where we could really do a lot of the work in Antonio and Jono's office and then just show it to people, versus we could try and recruit some folks here that want to get involved that could really help be in developing the content. And I think we have to kind of strategize how we're going to go about that. So many questions more than answers in my mind.
And if I could add too a couple of thoughts related to that, there are some chapters that I think we know are going to be necessary and are going to be useful components of the plan that would need to be defined. So for example, you're going to need to have a land use chapter, you're going to need to have a housing chapter, a transportation chapter, natural assets, parks and recreation. I think it would make sense to have a chapter that deals with the arts and artistic activity. There's going to be a chapter most likely on economic development, because that's also an important component of what you're looking at. And so in some ways, a part of the structure may already exist, and it's just some additional components of that structure that you know, we're going to be discussing with you and with Mike over the next few weeks. You know, how that content gets developed is also an interesting question, because if you have in place you know, some of your resident groups and your steering committee members who are excited to develop content for the plan, you know, we can be developing content and they can be developing content, and we can bring it together and then enrich the content that's going into the plan with ideas that you know, maybe didn't come to us or maybe didn't come to them, but then it's, you know, using what we know about comprehensive planning and the experience of you know, what will be helpful to include, we can enrich the plan in that way. I think that there's a, you know, I think that's a conversation that's pending with Mike, but how we figure that process is going to be very important. One of the things that I maybe kind of emphasize is that we know that there are some components of the plan that the plan needs to have for it to be a useful document for you when you are interacting with, for example, MnDOT or with the county on transportation issues, or with developers who want to place or build structures within your city. So there are some components that need to exist for the plan to be able to help you in that. But there are other components as well that can help steer some of your economic policies and and some of your land use policies that maybe are not exactly inside of the land use chapter, although we would bring some of those recommendations in eventually, but maybe they also need to stand as another chapter. So for example, if you have a focus on local food production, or maybe there's a focus on resilience, and maybe that's a chapter in the plan. Some of those recommendations in the resilience or in the local food production chapter need to go also into the land use chapter. So there's going to be a lot of interconnections. You can imagine each chapter as a maybe separate component, but with a lot of webs in between each of those. If each one is a column, there's a lot of webs that tie the columns together. So it can be a fairly dense mass of connections. But the organizing, the reason for having chapters is that it helps us to organize the content, and it helps the reader and the users of the plan to organize their recommendations and their understanding of what the plan is trying to accomplish.
Does that make sense? Any questions?
No, that makes sense. Does that answer your question about what the next steps are a little bit better?
No.
Yes, but
maybe,
no.
maybe.
We'll see when we get there.
End game, do we have an end game?
We know what the end game
Definitely
is.
not an end game.
Oh, it's
Our timeline is to shoot for some sort of draft plan by the end of June right now, but I think we need to discuss with Mike the questions that he has and get a good foundation for how we're going to go forward in co-developing. It sounds like co-developing some of these sections.
Yeah, we've really started this with a great base of community involvement.
Right.
And I just want to make sure that we've thought through the most appropriate way to continue their involvement in this project.
Now, are you guys updating the GrandMaraisVision.org? Is that us or who?
Yeah, no, we update that. Right now, we still had opened the second round of engagement, which is the confirmation of vision and values. We have the first draft of that information up there. We could talk about, putting up the new iteration, but I hesitate to put up a new iteration until we have some sort of come to some sort of agreement with the council about how you folks feel about the language going forward, and then maybe we could put that out to the community again. But
I think you should put it up, and I think, let's just be honest about what it is. Our third iteration, we're still talking about, but if it generates conversation, that would be helpful.
And if there's a way to get direct feedback on the third iteration, or first and second even, specifically words.
That would be great, and what I'd encourage to make that happen, we put up a first iteration and we got 12 responses on that, and most of them were very positive. There was really just one response that was negative about the plan, or about not the plan, but the values and vision. And so what we're going to need to get kind of robust feedback on this third draft iteration, I can put that up on the survey gizmo, is to really promote that in your networks, so that we can get the comments on that.
Yeah, understood.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But we'll definitely do that, and I think we can just put the text as it stands right now on the website, just so that
I think that works.
Yeah.
Great.
Cool.
And maybe even suggested topics we've missed or we're considering adding or incorporating. I don't know if that's spurs, or we just want to leave it wide open.
There's a section under there for comments, so I think that...
No, but what we currently had just been talking about versus rewriting it, including what we just talked about and posting it, you could just have what we have as a vision and then just some notes about also considering, county hub or emphasis on the outdoors. I don't know. Maybe this is just complicating the website, but I'm just trying to figure out a way.
Sounds good.
I'm trying to figure out a way to really engage people more, you know, if there's suggestions on there for them to give more feedback.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I mean, at first when you said that, I was a little bit hesitant because, you know, a lot of the 6 points that we have, they came directly from the survey results. So, you know, we don't want to be recreating that process of gathering that information.
Sure.
But like what you brought up and saying that, you know, we should have in our someplace in our mission statement the acknowledgement that Grand Marais is a hub for this area. Like that's not something that showed up directly in the survey results, but it's kind of the underlying tone of all of that stuff that's in the survey results. So, yeah, I think that would make sense to do that.
Well, and I guess my point for suggesting adding notes to that vision statement and or value statements was just so we don't reinvent just so we don't have the same conversation over and over again. Just if people see that that we've considered those ideas as well and want to incorporate them, then I don't know.
Well, it's good to gather the right information. I think that they could come up with that.
Yeah, that was all. I think.
All right.
Okay.
Had enough?
Anything else? All right. Well,
Fantastic.
thank you so much for calling in, Antonio and Jono. And
thank you.
we look
and
forward
thank you for being so thoughtful about all of this. This is going to, it's really helpful as we think really deeply about these issues. So I appreciate it and appreciate the time and consideration that everybody's put into this. And I, again, welcome all the comments and wordsmithing from everybody. That would be great. So thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good night, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, there we go.
What a great tool.
Yeah,
Do that every meeting,
I
huh?
think we're moved up another 10 years there, Mike.
I would say so.
You mean with our technology?
Got to the third of the
Pretty soon we just
century
need to
now.
get the holograms of them coming in. All right, so
Needles, like needles. You seen Back to the Future?
All right, that was a huge chunk of work, everybody. Nice job.
yeah. Okay, so we're just gonna move right along to the council and staff reports. So, Mr. Mills, what do you got?
I missed most of the Y Advisory Council, but there was a vote regarding the daycare and cooperation station, and the Y had been leasing the cooperation station, and the vote was to continue that because the Y had looked at purchasing options, funding for that, and did not get a grant for that, and so I had to take a harder look at the future of that arrangement. And there was some space that was either opened up or developed within the Y building with the school, so that the operations could be moved there, and that would be a huge cost savings. And so that was how the council voted, was to do that. So the YMCA will not be having daycare services at the cooperation station.
Has there been discussion? But there's no net loss of
Care.
care. Okay.
Yep. And so I'm not sure what the cooperation station is going to do there, but, and
I don't think they're sure either.
no.
Yeah, probably not.
And I missed, like I said, I missed most of that, but that's the summary there, so. Which you could probably get from other sources besides me, but hey,
Well, you're here.
I like to talk.
Do you have any other meetings you went to?
I think that's it. I'll think of something else.
I'm,
Your turn first.
well, but I'm second now. I'm not last.
Yeah,
So-
we switched positions now, as, you know. You're
Well,
done-
I'll go
you're done
through-
now.
I'll go through. I'll go through mine as quickly as I can. I participated in the Science March, which was on Saturday, and that was really exciting and wonderful to see so many people out to speak about that. It was very positive. A lot of really motivated folks in our community. When I spoke a little bit about what we're doing, how science is informing a lot of the things that we're choosing to do, such as the Climate Action Plan. I also attended the Northwoods Volunteer Corps meeting, which was that on just last night? Monday night? And that was also really interesting. I mean, talking about how much this community runs on volunteers and also, you know, is held up by them, to have organizations that are working to organize our volunteers. That was a very interesting experience as well. A lot of really motivated folks showed up to that. I went to a creative economy meeting where they were talking about the Arts Commission again. So I just keep mentioning this because I feel like it's important for us to keep this on our radar and to understand that the formation of an Arts Commission is something that is probably somewhat imminent for the city. It's a group of people that have some kind of advisory power for different types of aesthetic and artistic things around the community. So none of that has been ironed out, obviously, because we haven't talked about it. But I'll keep you abreast of developments that happen with that. I've had a number of meetings with the Moving Matters group. There's going to be a third grade bike safety training up at the school that I'm going to be, Tim and I are actually going to be doing, which is going to be pretty fun, I think. And that ties into May is Bike Month. It's also the Move It in May month for the clinic. So we should all sign up as a city council and staff, and then we could have a team that takes on everybody else. No?
Make it happen.
Quorum.
Yeah, right. For our workouts. So anyway, that's that. One of the I was just brought on board with a resident talked to me about a bill that's going through the state legislature right now. It's a HR 600 or something like that, which is speaks about preemption of local authority, and there. I read the bill, and it was kind of vague about what it was, but basically what the bill does is it limits the ability of cities to create local laws that that do things such as set a minimum wage or create housing or employment standards and things like that. And there's a number of cities from across the state who are signing on in opposition to this. And I personally felt like it was like the way the bill was written, it's a bit of an intrusion into our into local authority, and I would be in favor of writing a resolution of some sort, or signing on to the resolution in opposition to that, because I feel like we have to keep as much of the decision making that we can on the local level, because if we don't have it on the local level, then we really won't have much ability to do anything about that. So I don't know what you guys think about that, but I can provide you with that information, and we can decide that at a next meeting or something, or whatever we want to do with that. So I don't know. Thoughts?
Well, that legislation I think it's been approved by the House, and I'm not sure where it is in the Senate, but I think it's pretty close to getting approved and sent to the governor.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if we have a time to wait till the next meeting if we want to take some kind of action.
Well, there's no reason why you can't individually reach out and talk to people and share your own opinion on the issue. I mean, I think that would be just as meaningful as writing a resolution that's the same as 30 other cities.
And this resolution that you're talking about signing on to is being organized by who?
It's being organized by the League of Minnesota Cities. I believe.
Who's that little logo down there?
Can't see it.
Doesn't look like it.
No. Newspaper and Communications Guild. I don't know what that means. But I think that perhaps what, I mean, if it is moved beyond, like it's already passed, it's passed in both houses, but there was an amendment made to it, and now they're in a committee of 3, so that they're kind of going back to the negotiating table. So I feel like it probably would make sense for us to say something about it pretty quickly here. I mean, it makes me kind of nervous. I don't know if it's really going to limit us too terribly much, because I don't think we have a lot of will right now to do like a citywide minimum wage or do like a plastic bag ban. But that's the kind of stuff that this preemption would put at risk. So,
I mean, I've been following it, and I mean, I do think it's an infringement on our ability to do what we think is best for our constituents here in the community, and by having the legislature just lay down a preemptive standard, I think they're taking away our authority and responsibility to do what our constituents want.
well, perhaps what we should do then is we should, if you feel strongly about that, counselors and public, to reach out to the governor and the and your representatives, so that they can carry that message.
Well, you said it went through the House already. Do you know how Rob voted, or I mean,
I believe it was passed mostly with Republican
party line?
Yeah.
Also, the governor just vetoed.
Well, there's been talk about a possible veto, but
The vote was.
So right to the governor. Is that?
But you
For
could
mayor
do-
sets
very well
sway.
may be the only way. I mean, it's in conference committee now, and once it comes out of conference committee, it might change a little bit, but it's in substance, it's going to change much, I don't think.
Yeah, so
yeah.
Eklund voted against it.
So mayoral power might be the best.
Well, I'll
Your
definitely-
connection to Governor Dayton, I think, as strong as it is, will
There we go. I'll use my massive influence with the governor.
near again.
Yeah, you know it. Okay, so so that's that. And then the only other thing that I have is I received from the Nordic Nature Group a draft Green Step Coordinator job description, which came from the folks at Green Step, at the Green Step program. And it has, position's purpose, who it reports to. There's a budget in there, and I thought that was an interesting thing, because the budget actually makes it a paid position. And the reason for that is that they say that if you want to actually have this be something that you're going to use as a city, a city resource, then you have to put some money behind it, so that the person who is actually getting paid to do these things, otherwise this stuff will never get done. Case in point, we had a very, very capable Green Steps coordinator before in George Wilkes, but we didn't get anything done because there was no direction, and there was no, he didn't really have any exact drive to do this. It has knowledge, skills, and abilities, it has the principal responsibilities, and that's one of the things that I think we should take a deeper look at this, and we should take a look at whether we want this to be a Green Step coordinator or something bigger than that. This is a Green Step / Climate Action Plan coordinator, but maybe we want to call this something else, because we have a lot of other programs going on that this person could work with, such as, a lot of other inquiries, such as the Dark Sky program and things like that.
What kind of budget are you talking about?
They're talking about, for a year, about $5,000. So they would basically get paid similarly to a council person, and they would be expected to do a set number of hours of work throughout that period of time, or have specific things that they're supposed to accomplish.
Did they have funding ideas there? Sometimes these programs, you can get grants to fund.
Well, Nordic Nature Group has ideas. So if you, I mean, we can definitely put this on the next agenda, and then we can, you know, maybe put some thought into what the funding options would be for that. So, does that sound like a plan? Stands? Okay, that's all I got.
Just to jump on the bandwagon with May is Bike Month. Also in May, it's Bike to Work Day on May 19th. And I've already suggested to the mayor that he issue a proclamation to support biking to work. And I think there's also a Bike to School Day, and I'm not sure what the date of that is. I think it's a Bike and Walk to School Day. That would also be a good thing for the mayor to make, you know, one of his great proclamations about. You know, I mean, it's.
Well, whereas I do great proclamations.
Yes, whereas you do.
Anyway.
Be it resolved.
Proclaimed.
On Monday, I went down to Greater Minnesota Regional Parks and Trails Commission workshop in Duluth. And it was a workshop for potential applicants for master planning. That the commission was explaining their new portal. Lisa Kerr was there from the County Parks and Trails administrator, trying to gather information about how to put together the application for Sawtooth Bluffs. So, good thing that you know, she showed up. I think gathered that information. Hopefully, the County Parks and Trails Commission will be able to use that information to start a process. I think she also met with Andy Hubley, talking about trying to enlist services of ARDC to help facilitate a process. So there's movement and activity going on regarding Sawtooth Bluffs, which is, I think, you know, a positive step. That's one of the things that the County Parks and Trails Commission identified as one of the priorities, is to begin working on that plan. So that's you know, seeming to be starting to happen. So. And the last thing is, I just wonder if there's any update on Highway 61, anything more happening? Do we have another meeting scheduled?
They asked for a little bit of an extension so they could more thoroughly, and, you know, so they could produce more resources for us and things like that, like more maps and things. So they asked for a little bit more time. That's what we know.
I see somebody was out pounding stakes in the ground along the highway today with little initials and stuff.
Yeah,
that's
in the next couple of weeks, they'll be doing some borings in the highway.
Okay.
Which is good. Otherwise, I think it'll probably be more like late May, early June when we get back and look at MnDOT's first crack at some streetscape ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And what kind of time does that give us to finalize something before they have? We were talking about a timeline that they have to prepare themselves to get ready for bids.
Yeah, it's kind of a moving target in my opinion. Because I think a year ago I would have thought we were already past it by now. and the last word I've heard is more like October. But there's also some aspects of it that I think really we have a lot of time to work on things. So they want to make sure that they understand what they call the geometric layout by October.
Okay.
Where
the
where the rest
geometric
of the
layout
time-
is what
where
is
the
what
curbs end up, how wide the lanes are, where turn lanes go, things like that.
But beyond the curbs, that's not necessarily.
They don't. I don't think they necessarily need to know as much about that. Now, I would suggest, of course, that you can't do a good job of knowing what's inside the curb without knowing what's outside the curb. They have to influence each other. So I think that we're going to really try and get a lot of this work done by their October deadline. But is that October deadline deadline like the last one, or is it, I don't know. All I know is that we're gonna do our part to make sure that they can meet their deadlines and keep the project moving. And in the meantime, I think they share with us the attitude that it's important to take the time now to get this right, and that's why they canceled what was a scheduled meeting 2 weeks and said, we're gonna need a couple more weeks. And I think that's a good sign.
Okay.
Anton?
I don't have anything.
All right.
I got one more thing.
Oh, no, one more thing.
Bathroom meeting, obviously it's not happening this week, because Tracy's not here this week. It's also not happening next week, and Anton isn't going to be around for a while. So now the question is, do you want to hold the meeting without Anton? And if you do, then we'll do not next week, but the following week, and I'll send out a new poll tomorrow. Or if you want to wait till he comes back, it'll be later on in May. End of May.
I'd say later on in May. What do you guys think? Do you want to get it done, or do you want to make sure everybody's there?
And the purpose of this next meeting is to do what?
Well, that's a good question. I think we need to do some scoping about what we intend to accomplish with public restrooms, and I think we want to do that at the meeting. I think we want to review some options that other places have used, and I think we want to talk about potential locations.
So you're talking in reference to a more permanent, long-term decision rather than any short-term decision of rehabbing the existing?
Well, my sense is that's what the council wants to see, but I think it's kind of up to you at that meeting to take it the direction you want to go, and that might be coming up with some long-term goals. It also might be coming up with some short-term projects that you want to get done this year. I'm not really sure, so you know, we're going to have to kind of wait and see when we talk about it.
I mean, I would like us to see us move more quickly on restoration of those, our existing bathrooms. And if we need to talk about the bigger picture and long-term thoughts on what we're thinking about, I don't mind holding off, but I really don't want to hold off on trying to get started on, you know, these bathrooms.
Well, the work that you've already discussed is underway.
It is.
And we're not going to wait for this larger conversation to do the work that you've already approved.
That was my concern, is that this conversation was going to hold up
Nope.
any action over there. Okay, then.
Well, I'd like to, sooner than later, I'd really like to have a conversation about strategies we can use to involve local businesses, downtown businesses that have restrooms that they might be willing to advertise or just inventory. And so I think that would be, you know, great to have a conversation sooner than later. As far as the larger long-term conversation for a permanent location of a larger public restroom facility, I think we should wait till the entire council is present for that. But
Sorry,
Yeah.
Anton, you're outvoted.
Well,
It's fine.
is that, I mean, I feel like they should be two separate meetings, but,
I don't think so. As a
okay.
matter of fact,
They don't
I
need to
think
be, I'm just thinking
we
one.
can gather that data for the meeting.
Oh, yeah.
Just have
Do
it
it.
be one of the things that you can use
Sure.
to talk about.
Well, it's,
Well, if we have that information at hand, we can think about what if there's incentivizing or whatever it is that needs to,
yeah.
that we want to try and present, or the ideas. If we know we're like, oh, there's 3 or there's 48, you know, I mean, that's going to make a big difference.
Yeah.
And any sort of, I mean, I don't know what that means, if there's a question that can be asked if, like, we've identified you have a bathroom. How interested are you in public use? And, you know, what would, if there's, and it's just like vague, not like what's it gonna take, but like, you know, and maybe no matter what, people would say no, but it seems like if there was we had some sort of temperature on that, maybe that's too much.
I don't know how to figure that out yet.
Well, I
I'll have to
can-
think about that.
Well, would like.
I'm willing to
would
survey
a-
the businesses.
Would a city-sponsored incentive make you more interested in allowing the public to use your bathroom? I mean, yes or no question.
Yeah.
I mean, that seems.
I'd be, yeah.
I'm willing to survey the downtown businesses. If you guys will want me to do that, I'm willing to send them an email or, you know, talk to them and see what their thoughts are on it. And I feel like if I send them a direct email, then there's a pretty good chance that they'll reply in some way, shape, or form.
So what would you be asking? I mean, I see a big difference in a business saying that they have a public bathroom and advertising that they have a public bathroom. I mean, there are a lot of businesses that you can go in and use their bathroom. They don't have a big sign out front that says, come on in. In fact, there's many businesses that have
Yeah.
just, public bathrooms that have signs that say, not a public bathroom.
Well, in public bathrooms, I would say that public bathrooms we would have to define that in a certain way, you know, because bathrooms for customers, like you don't expect people to walk into, you know, like the Harbor House Grill and then go and use the bathroom and then just walk right out or something like that. You know, a lot of the same way some of the businesses around don't have, you know, they don't have bathrooms that are, you know, that are nice that they want to share with people.
Right.
And so there's, you know, we've had this conversation over and over and over again about that. I feel like what we want to ask, would you be willing to make a facility in your building available to the public? And if you are, you know, or if you aren't, then would an incentive from the city be something that would change your mind on that?
How about instead of jerking businesses around, we figure out what the and I don't mean to be too harsh there, but just like, instead of like going, you know, with businesses, if we figure out, can we figure out the costs, a water bill for each business?
It's more than water, I can tell you that.
Well,
What do you mean? Oh, right.
Staff time.
Right, I'm not asking
maintain-
about that. I'm
maintain
asking
the
if we can
public
find a water bill, because that's a basis for us to start, like,
well, you're kind of
free
jumping
water
ahead,
if
though.
you, right,
I mean,
yes.
you're, and I think what we want to accomplish at this meeting is
What we're talking about.
put some definition around what the problem is and what your expectations are, and then we can start looking at specific solutions for it. And because right now I'm not sure. Well, I mean, how many businesses would you want to take us up on that incentive?
Well, that's why I don't
Two
think.
of them, 17 of them.
Don't
We
know what the cost
because we
is.
haven't. But forget about the cost. We don't know what the expectation of service is either. How many restrooms should be available? How far away from each other should they be? I mean, I think you want to be a little more strategic about it. I thought that was kind of the idea of this meeting, was to really more take a big picture look at the issue of restrooms in the downtown.
Okay.
And then if we identify some real problems based on that look, then we start talking about solutions rather than right now jump into this idea, because
Sure.
this might not solve any of the issues that exist.
Sure.
Well, I mean, we already know that there's a lot of businesses downtown that have what I would call quasi-public restrooms
Yeah.
that people can go in and use,
Yes.
and we still have a problem. So if you open those up and call those public restrooms, do we still have a problem? I
Well,
would say we still have a problem. So-
We're perceiving a problem, but we haven't defined it very well. And I
I would
feel like
agree
that's
there.
kind of an important next step for us. You know, it's obvious that we're talking about a problem, so there's something here.
Well,
But if we
we've
don't
been-
start putting some definition around it, then we're not gonna know what steps to take that will satisfy us.
We've been told that there's a problem too, and we know that the satellite toilets that we have out there get used, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
so we know that there's a need. We've
Yeah.
heard that there's a problem from various, you know, people in the community. Now, how accurate that is, I mean, I don't know how to quantify that problem, and, you know, but we've been talking about public bathrooms forever, and, you know, what's our intent?
Yeah, and that's the question you need to answer. And that's how you put some definition around it. And you don't have to study it where we try and figure out, you know, how many steps between this and that. before you get to a public restroom. I mean, you don't have to have some sort of scientific basis for it either, but we do need to at least just kind of pick a point and say, this is what we're aiming for. How close are we? Right?
Bathrooms.
Well, how many?
All of them. No,
Yeah.
that's a good
We
point.
just, we
Yeah,
just need, we just need to turn downtown into a giant bathroom.
Just like one of
Well,
those
we
metro,
might
like at the Metrodome
want to
with the
just
big, like,
avoid
thing.
that.
So
That's
so
kind of
anyway.
where this conversation's going, you know? I mean, it's joking about it now, but it's also like, that's the only conversation we're having.
Sure.
There needs
Yeah.
to be another level of.
Oh, yeah.
Well, okay, so right now what we need to do is, I think that,
Do
you
it
know,
before I get back so you can get it moving. I mean, I'll write something and send
If-
it in if you want.
if he's okay not
Will
being
you
at
go
that
on the
meeting.
TV?
I would do that too.
If, yeah, let's use some technology.
Okay,
Okay, put it together.
it's done.
Great. Wow,
That was
fast,
easy.
too.
That was so
That was really
easy.
fast.
Maybe
Using some
maybe a
technology.
TV?
That's right.
Anyway,
I just wanted to do
anything
that.
else? What?
The fire department would like to sell the first responder Tahoe
Oh.
that they replaced with the Suburban to the Hoagland Fire Department for $500.
Didn't we? Oh, no, we didn't approve the sale of that.
No.
No,
And they're cool with that? Everybody, like Hoagland's cool with that? They want to buy it for $500?
They do.
Oh, this is the big, like, up the shore shuffle. I'll make a motion to sell the Tahoe to the Hoagland Fire Department for $500. Is there a second?
Yeah, second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Opposed? Carries.
Go hold on. Let's go
Anything
home.
else? We are,
Way to sneak that in. Good
Yeah,
job, Gil.
break shop.
They always ask, and today they didn't
What?
ask.
Hang that up in your break shop.
And then, whoa.
Don't you push it?
like,
Whoa.
we're making.
Put it in your
everyone.
window.
Thank
Good
you,
night, Chris.
guys.
Thanks for sticking
Oh
with
my
us.
God.
Oh, we forgot